This is the Roswell UFO crash through the eyes of Mac Brazel, the man who lived closest to the crash site, Part 1. On the night of July 2nd, 1947, a rancher by the name of Mac Brazel was chilling in his home waiting for a thunderstorm to pass. It was the summertime, so thunderstorms were quite common around this time. Now, Mac's ranch, known as the Foster Ranch, is actually 65 miles northwest of Roswell. So the following day after the thunderstorm passed, Mac went outside to inspect the ranch for damage. He rode along the ranch and came across a field that was littered with strange metallic debris. Mac looks at the debris, picks it up, and notices that it doesn't feel very heavy in his hands. It's practically weightless and indestructible. It's like nothing he's ever seen before. Mac realizes that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and so he grabs the strange metal pieces and he takes them back to his home, where he later shows his son Bill. After Mac shows the strange metal pieces to his son Bill, Bill shows a piece to some of his friends and peers. He shows it to his neighbor's daughter, a 10-year-old girl who later told her mother that the strange piece of metal that Bill showed her could be crumpled like a piece of paper with your fist. And when you open your hand, the piece of metal would revert back to its original shape. Now, these are testimonials from real working-class Americans who have no motivation whatsoever to lie. In fact, most of these testimonies were put through an AI deception detector that literally gathers the witnesses' facial expressions, vocal intonations, and it compiles everything to predict a true or false outcome. Many of them were determined to be truthful. Now back to Mac. 36 hours after Mac discovered the debris, he's yet to report what he found to the police. His reason for not telling them right away is because it happened to be a holiday weekend, with Independence Day falling on the third day after the crash. Mac hasn't told the police that he's in the possession of alien technology yet, because he figures, it's July 4th. Let's turn up. He actually has a sudden urge to tell everyone what he found, as anyone would, and so he pulls up to this bar in Corona, New Mexico, and he shows several people what he has. What's crazy is that some of these people that held the objects at the bar later verified that they held something that they've never seen before. Fast forward 4 days later on July 6th, Mac straps his boots, gets in his pickup truck, and finally decides to take the debris to Roswell. He was actually glad to bring the pieces of metal to the government as it gave him a sense of fulfillment. At this time, people were more trusting of the government considering the result of World War II. Anyway, Mac brings the pieces of metal to a sheriff in Roswell named George Wilcox. Wilcox then calls the local Air Force base, and the head of intelligence, Major Jesse Marcel, answers. On July 6, 1947, Mac is visited by Major Jesse Marcel for a return to where he found the strange metal debris. Here you have a civilian, Mac, and a military major working together to unravel what is probably the most important discovery of all time. They spent an entire day trying to find the debris field, all to no avail. So they decide to camp out for the night and resume the search the following morning. At first light, they finally come across the debris field. And it was at that moment that Mac's inclusion in this event begins to come to a close. Now that the military scours the debris field and picks up the metal pieces, Mac's job is basically done. Except it's not. His job is to now keep hush-hush on this whole operation. However, Mac ends up speaking to reporters Frank Joyce and Walt Whitmore of KGFL. Mac spills the beans in an interview which, to this day, has never been heard or found. And then Mac decides to lie low at Walt Whitmore's crib. The military is on his ass. The clock's ticking for Mac. Well, the clock ticks and the military busts through Walt's home. They bag Mac's head and they take him to Roswell Army Airfield. Mac is now imprisoned for telling the truth. 3 days in, Mac is left without food or water. He's being interrogated, trying to get him to switch up the flying saucer story. They put the poor man through some serious mind-altering tactics such as sleep deprivation and different forms of torture to get him to detract. And that they did. After those days of torture, the military escorts him to KGFL radio, where he goes live on the air to state publicly that the metal debris he found were in fact pieces of a weather balloon. Mac's story is one that I personally believe, only because of how many witnesses are tied to him, but he is just one piece of the entire Roswell incident story. Something, in fact, out of this world crashed in Roswell. And we all need to come together to demand the United States government to come clean and tell us what they recovered. Like, at this point, we ain't even gonna be mad about it. We are past the days of secrecy and speculation on UFOs. They are real, they are here, so let's get those Roswell files declassified.
So more and more, I'm seeing so many freaking videos of people talking about they feel like there is some weird shift going on in the world. and how they feel like it's affecting their energy. So this creator right here, Nico of New York, really hit on something that exactly was what I was feeling. And I feel like a lot of us are feeling the same way.
I feel like time has sped up so much that there's not even 24 hours in a day anymore.
I can honestly say I feel that exactly. It's so weird. It doesn't feel like there's 24 hours in the day anymore. It feels like it's more like 16. And I know. People are going to be like, no, it's because you're older. And time seems to go by so much quicker when you're old. When you're younger, you don't even think about time. So it's not even like in your mindset. When you're a little kid and summer seems to last forever. No, I'm telling you, something is off with the time. I've seen videos of people talking about how their clocks are even different. And I literally said to my husband a month ago, I'm like, what the frick is going on with our clocks? Everything seems to be different. Even though I set it the same time, they change. My microwave clock, my stove clock, my coffee maker clock, I set them the same time, but somehow it always gets scrubbed and they turn out different. Nobody else in the house is touching it. And we're talking about drastically different times. It's so weird. Okay, and he also goes on to say this.
And sometimes I feel as though people's energy drains me whenever I go out because of how vastly different they are now. And I don't understand as though why that is, because it just seems as though that you have two different types of people. You have the people who are aware of what's going on and the shift in all the energy.
Right.
This is direct.
That is exactly how I've been feeling, because I haven't even been wanting to go out anymore because the energy of some people just seems to be so off, and I can't figure out why I'm feeling that way.
The other type of people that you have are the people who are unaware and they're just living their life normally. And I'm wondering, where do you fall on?
Okay, right? So, like, that's super weird. You have people who are totally unaware of the shift and are just walking around normally in their regular world, not worried about a thing or not even thinking about a thing. But what is that? Why? And I know that there are people who are becoming more awake, but why are there people who aren't? Is it because they are just stuck in this reality that's totally falling apart? Yeah, why are people stuck is because they don't want to know. Because I want to know. I want to know everything. I want to know all the creepy stuff. I want to know what's going on. Also, his voice is really cool.
Have you ever noticed how some mountains look like giant petrified tree stumps? Well, maybe they are. Now here's an example of a regular petrified tree stump. So the word petrified means fossilized. So over the course of many, many years, a dead tree will fossilize and turn to stone. This mountain right here is known as the Devil's Tower, located in Wyoming. It oddly looks like a giant tree stump. Now, according to mainstream science, the Devil's Tower was formed by magma or lava. However, that theory does not make any sense, because lava does not form perfect hexagonal shapes. This right here is an image of a close-up of the Devil's Tower. This is what lava looks like when it turns to stone. Now, the one thing we know about trees is trees create hexagonal cell walls, just like this. So maybe this mountain and many others found are actually not mountains, but giant petrified tree stumps. And maybe that's why creatures on Earth used to be so big, because of the amount of oxygen that these ginormous trees gave off. It would also explain why pre-flood people lived 800 years or more in the Bible.
If you cut and place 10 stones a day, it would take you 664 years to make the pyramid. There's 2,300,000 stones in the Great Pyramid. I more and more think that it's very likely that the entire world experienced a cataclysmic disaster around 11,800, 12,000 years ago, somewhere in that range. And it knocked us back into the Stone Age. But those people who were around before that were probably more sophisticated than we are. We're thinking of technology only as technology that we've implemented, like these microphones and cell phones and shit. But it's possible there was a completely different branch of technology, and they had figured out something that allowed them to manipulate enormous stones. We just haven't figured it out yet.
Is this proof that giants are real?
If somebody says that we don't have any photos of Earth from space, they're lying. I'm about to show you my favorite photos of Earth from space, and they keep getting better. This is the very first photo of Earth from space. There are no stars in the background because that's just not how cameras work. You can't have the same exposure for a really bright object in the foreground and really dim objects in the background. You gotta pick one or the other. This is the first photo of the Earth from another astronomical object, the moon. I love this one. This is the first full disk true color image of the Earth. This is the very famous Earthrise photo taken in orbit around the moon. This This photo is called the Blue Marble. It was taken on Apollo 17. This is unedited. There are other photos also called the Blue Marble that are edited, but this is the real unedited full one, the first one. This is the first photo of Earth from past Pluto. That's Earth. This is the first movie of Earth from space where it makes an entire full rotation. This was taken over a 25-hour period. This is the Pacific Ocean from the Discover satellite. That's Antarctica for people who say we don't have photos of Antarctica.
If we never landed on the moon, and if Apollo didn't make it to the moon, then how come we have a picture of Earth from the moon?
How's it going, TikTok? This is the Amanda Bynes Deep Dive Part 2. Let's get into it. This creepy looking guy is known as Dan Schneider, and if you watched Nickelodeon anytime in the early 2000s, you probably have seen something he's worked on. Schneider's Bakery, Dan's production company, would go on to be one of Nickelodeon's most successful production companies by making shows like Zoe 101, The Amanda Show, iCarly, All That, Good Burger, just to name a few. Behind all of these successful shows, there's a weird trend that I'm going to show you in the next clip.
But my big toe is so boring. My big toe is boring too. It doesn't have to be. What can we do? Look, my beautiful big toe. My big toe's a ballerina.
If you didn't catch the trend I was referring to, I'm just going to throw in this meme I found on Google and we'll revisit it in Dan Schneider Deep Dive. Amanda would work closely with Dan for years, even when she dipped her toes into the film industry. I mentioned this in the first video, but I'm going to mention it again. The Amanda Show ended when Amanda turned 16 after 3 very successful years. Nickelodeon said this was Amanda's decision to look for better opportunities, but Dan Schneider's blog claimed that the show was unexpectedly canceled. One day before the final episode of The Amanda Show aired, Amanda came out with a pilot episode of her new show, which was more adult-oriented. The new show was called What I Like About You, and what's interesting about this is What I Like About You went on to be Dan Schneider's first non-children's show. It seems to me like Amanda couldn't even get a break from Dan, and from what his wife said in this article right here, she was even at his house quite a bit. That same article, dated in 2003, stated that in 2002, Amanda was seeking out emancipation from her parents. And her parents didn't know about this, and when they found out, they fired her entire team. This is something I also want to throw in, because I think it's weird Dan said this in an article, because I read multiple stories of him being suspected of giving Amanda medicines to make her hyper. Even if we didn't have these pictures of Dan from all over the years, I'd still think this is really weird. Amanda finally gets a break from creepy Dan in her film What a Girl Wants. At this point, Amanda had been in the spotlight for a few years, but she was far from used to it.
Now at 17, she's no longer wet behind the ears, but she still can't believe she's got her very own movie poster.
It's so weird. I mean, I just sit and look like, oh God, I look like that?
In 2006, Amanda was about to turn 20 years old when she came out with her next big role, She's the Man. Amanda has described this role as the beginning of her downfall, and in this clip you can kind of see why.
Putting the wig on and the sideburns, I mean, how was that? Did you have any trouble getting that? And then the voice, was that hard?
It was sort of like I felt like I had an identity crisis just because I didn't, like all of these people didn't know me that well, so all of a sudden I'm dressed up as a guy. And
Amanda said this role caused her to go into a 4 to 6 month long depression because she didn't like how she looked as a boy. She also said that watching the movie for her was a super strange out-of-body experience.
Ever hear about the Amelia Earhart theory?
I know Amelia Earhart. I haven't heard that theory, though.
You know who that is?
Yeah.
She's like the first female pilot, right?
Yeah, female pilot.
The common theory is, she disappeared, right? She went into the Bermuda Triangle, whatever.
Yeah.
So take this in, bro.
What?
She might have actually crash-landed on an island and survived.
And survived?
And survived. So take this in, bro. There were pictures that came out, I think, not too long ago. It was secret CIA pictures, whatever.
Yeah.
And it showed an image in the Marshall Islands of two pilots that looked like Amelia Earhart and the person she was riding with.
Whoa.
So take this in. Where she was, they ended up making stamps, postage stamps, with Amelia Earhart on it.
What?
With Amelia Earhart on it. And they even made one of the plane crashing and saying that's when they landed.
Whoa.
So that's them. That's the island telling them, yo, Amelia Earhart was here.
Yeah.
Was here.
They have
and she survived, right?
Yeah.
That's supposed to be a rhetorical question because, I mean, obviously the answer is no, but I am curious to see how you back this up.
Everything used to be a lot bigger due to oxygen levels, and
We just need an example of a mammal that got bigger because there was too much oxygen.
take a look at this prehistoric centipede.
Now, I'm no ornithologist, but that right there is definitely not a mammal. This bitch, an Arthropluria, it's an arthropod, as you may have guessed. And there's a reason why it got so big and mammals didn't. You don't need to be a biologist to know that mammals and insects probably breathe differently. Mammals got lungs, and our respiratory system's tied to our circulatory system. And insects, in a way, sort of breathe through their skin. Boom, it's the Carboniferous period now. Happy New Year. Trees fucking everywhere. It's hot, it's humid, oxygen levels are 30% higher than they are today. And so insects go, damn, if only I had more surface area, I could be sucking in some more oxygen. Because I don't have lungs like a total loser. And so insects pop the fuck off. Oh my god, it took me 60 seconds to debunk one bullshit point. I guess I'm gonna have to make another video.
Yo, I'm gonna blow your mind. You ready? Do you know about the Will Smith and Chris Rock theory?
No.
Yo, there's a...
What's something you have no way of proving but you believe to your core is true?
Bigfoot is not a fucking supernatural cryptid, he is someone's fursona. Specifically, this motherfucker, right here. Now I know what you're thinking, but John, that's not a neon green fox, and that is because that photo was taken in the 60s, and vintage fursuits...
Yes, I did spend valuable time Googling vintage fursuits.
Vintage fursuits were a lot more realistic and animalistic. Additionally, according to this heat map of furries... Yes, I also had to Google a heat map of furries. According to this heat map, the location of that image, Northern California, is sort of a significant spot for furry activity. So in conclusion, this is not a supernatural cryptid. That is someone in their fursuit who got caught on camera and is now too scared, too proud, or too dead to reveal the truth.
Conspiracy theory about it.
Oh, there's actually?
Yeah.
Damn.
So there's a theory, right? Why did Will Smith slap Chris Rock? Because
G.I. Jane joke.
G.I. Jane joke because Jada was balding, right?
Yeah.
Because she had alopecia.
Yeah.
Take this in. Pfizer sponsored the Oscars this year.
Really?
Yeah, if you look at all of the banners where they show the Oscars logo, in the corner, Pfizer, sponsored by Pfizer, powered by Pfizer. The joke of the night was making fun of alopecia, right?
Okay.
Will Smith slapped Chris Rock. Big deal, right? But we're all thinking about the joke. Why did he slap Chris Rock? Because of the joke. Pfizer just got a patent for alopecia cure.
What? What?
Yeah.
No way.
So could all just be this whole elaborate scheme for us to think about alopecia and people that do have it.
But in the subconsciously
go to Pfizer because it's all connected. It's all connected.
That's kind of a crazy coincidence.
There's a theory that Spencer from iCarly is actually Crazy Steve from Drake and Josh. So the theory goes that Crazy Steve, who is known for having violent outbursts on people and being mentally unhinged, actually kidnapped Megan, Drake and Josh's little sister, and fled to Seattle, giving them both false names and backstories to hide from the police. Now it doesn't end there. So Crazy Steve ended up brainwashing Megan to thinking her name is Carly. Now the show iCarly might be Megan trying to reach out to the public, showing her face, gaining attention, trying to show that she's been brainwashed and kidnapped by Spencer, aka Crazy Steve. Now there's hints throughout the show of iCarly calling back to Drake and Josh. And there's even this one scene where Drake shows up calling Carly Megan.
Hey, Megan. I don't believe I know you. Where's Josh? Where's Mom and Dad?
I mean, this one's a really crazy theory. It doesn't hold too much to it, but it is pretty interesting to see kind of this twist on it. Did you know there's a game console that it will kill you if you die in the game?
Tell me why I was just gonna say that.
You gonna say that?
Yeah. The VR?
The VR. So the creator of the Oculus, right?
Yeah.
I forgot his name exactly, but they work for Meta. They inspired this VR headset specifically after Sword Art Online. In that anime, what happens if you die in the game, you die in real life. He made it so that there's 3 explosives strapped onto the VR headset itself, right? Like fucking dynamite or shit. This is actually real. Like this isn't even just a concept. People can actually die if they play it. It's not in use for obvious reasons. But do you think personally that we can get to that level? There's this whole niche of gamers. They love playing games that have like a sense of risk at it. There's a game called Loss/Loss. If you lose and if you kill somebody in the game, it'll actually not only delete the game itself on your computer, but it will actually delete random files on your computer if you lose.
What the hell?
So let's say you're playing on a work laptop. If you lose and you die in the game, you'll lose documents or files that you have saved on that computer.
Okay guys, hear me out. You may have seen this conspiracy going around, but wait, there's more. So you remember the movie Tangled where Rapunzel is stuck quarantined in her room and keeping her social distance from everyone? Well, if you search the city name of where Rapunzel lives, it's called Corona. What? Which got me thinking, what a coincidence that Rapunzel lives in a city named Corona and she's stuck in a castle and she can't leave, just like how we all are stuck. Well, I was wondering, when did the movie come out? Apparently, 2010. And then I did some research, and apparently the last pandemic that we've experienced was the swine flu in 2010. Coincidence? I think not.